Hey guys, and welcome for coming back to Kacy's Kitchen here at BnB Homestead. And today we are talking all about greens. Now you may be wondering what all these greens are and what we're going to do with them. Today I have our radish tops, turnip green tops, cabbage and cauliflower leaves, and kale. Now you can use this recipe with any greens. Got my helper back again. And you want to start off by washing any greens that you get out of the garden and do a 2 rinse vinegar wash. What this is you will put them in the sink, fill the sink up with water with your greens in it, and put about a 1/4 cup of vinegar in it. Let them set for 5 to 10 minutes and just go around and just kind of wash them back and forth, and then rinse them off real well. Do this 2 times. This is going to get rid of any chemicals that you might have put on them, any DE, any bugs, slugs, any kind of dirt, to make your greens very green. And after you do your wash, then you don't have to let them dry, but you want to de-stem them. And you'll see on the turnip greens, they have a very thick stalk on them that you will have to go back and cut out. Now, I'm going to make a couple of disclaimers about this, and the first one being, this recipe is no longer a Ball approved canning recipe. The only reason why it's no longer approved is because of the second disclaimer. It is not a safety issue. It's because this breaks down into something that you wouldn't want to serve as a side dish. If you're looking to cook these and store them or preserve them for later for a side dish, this is not the recipe for you. You would want to blanch those greens and then freeze them in water in a freezer bag. Those are going to give you the best texture and taste for the side dish. This is a canning recipe that is going to preserve them and have them already cooked to use in stews, in soups, in quiches, in casseroles, things of that nature, where you don't have to worry about the texture or really the flavor of the green. And also, the reason it's no longer a Ball recipe is because of this amount of greens is not going to give you the equivalent of what you see here. It's only going to give us a few pints, probably barely enough to put in the pressure canner. And you have to do so much hard work for what you get out of it, and it just wasn't necessary to continue to put it in the recipe book. So what we're going to do now, I've already got these washed, and we are going to start taking these stems off of these different greens. And because you want to take the stalks off because they're really hard and really chewy, and you just don't want that in your dish. So we just want the leafy part of the greens. You can do any greens. You can do these greens. You can also do cabbage greens. You can do red cabbage leaves as well. Any leafy greens that grow in your garden at this time. Just, Brussel sprouts, green cabbage, like I said, radishes. You can also do your carrot tops, any kind of greens. Just throw it all in here and get it washed, get it de-stemmed, and then get it canned. And the first part we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to take all these stems off, and that's going to take a little bit. We'll work on it in a while. May have to come back tomorrow and finish them up. So stick around, guys. We moved back inside because it started getting a little chilly out there. So here you've seen we finished. We've got our broccoli and cauliflower leaves. This is our kale. This is our radishes, and these are our turnip greens. Now the turnip greens, they were in a field that was just for ground cover, and they hadn't been treated or anything for bugs, so I had to rewash them again. Once I started cutting the stems off, I noticed they had some more bugs on the back. So I ran them through another vinegar wash and took a brush and just lightly scrubbed all those eggs and bugs off the back. They are perfectly fine now. So that's taken us about 2 hours. So you can see just for a little bit, this has decreased by half. Once we took the stems and everything off, the volume looks like it's decreased by half. But now we've got to do another step. The next step we do is we've got to cut these into strips. If you want to leave them whole, you can, but if you're going to use them in like quiches or soups or stews, you want to get them probably as small as you can. So what we're going to do next is we're going to cut these into strips, and I'll show you how to do that. So as you cut the stems off, that's why we went ahead and left them in stacks, because it'll make this next step easier. And what we're going to do is get a few of the leaves, and you can either roll them up. I'm going to put this one in here. You can either roll them up this way, or if you want shorter strips, you can just fold them in half and cut them that way. You can either cut them with a knife, or with scissors, or you can cut them with a knife. So I'm just going to cut these with scissors real quick just to show you. And if they get longer than your scissors, you can fold it in thirds. So you just cut these in like 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch strips, like this. And then all these are going to go into our pot we've got down here underneath. These are some I've already done. We've got them all cut up there. And we'll continue to do that real quick and do that for all these greens. Alright, so we've got our greens done, and here's one big pot, and then our extra bowl of greens right here. Now this recipe calls for increments of 8 to 10 cups of greens. So what I'm going to do is I have one of these big batter cups. These are 8 cups to the line, almost 10 to the top. So we're going to see how many of these we have, because that's how many number of times we'll have to multiply the recipe. So we're just going to do a mixture. It doesn't matter what you put in here, because it's all going to go into a pot. Now here I have the bottom of a pressure canner. That's what I'm going to use as my pot. Now if I had my greens and something else, I could use this water bath as well. So I'm just going to put these in here, not pack it down, but just lightly tap it, just to make sure there's not like a big section in the bottom that doesn't have greens in it. That would mess up my measurement. So we're going to count how many of these we have, and that'll be how many times we multiply the recipe. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, and if you've ever cooked with green leafy vegetables like kale or turnip greens or mustard greens, you'll know that they cook down. So go ahead and get you a lot in here, and if you need to add some more as it cooks down, you can do that too. 4, I'm going to go ahead and measure this out, but I can't pour it in here just yet. But I've got to see how much liquid to put in here for the whole batch. 5, and I'm going to say 6 is in there. So now that we have all of our greens in our pot to cook, it is 2 cups of water per one of these. So per 8 to 10 cups of greens, you need 2 cups of water. We have 6, so that's going to be 12 cups of water to start wilting this down. is 8. Or more. We're going to turn this on and bring it up to temperature. Now, if you would like to add any kind of ham or bacon to this recipe, you can do that, but just remember it changes the time that you're going to pressure these. Any kind of meat or meat fat that goes into canning, you always have to do 75 minutes for pints and 90 minutes for quarts. So I'm going to give you now a basic recipe for the liquid that they are going to be canned in. You can also, while this is cooking down, you can also add some onions to it or cook the onions on the side and get those ready to be put in there as well. And you can use 1 or 2 onions depending on your preference of how you like them cooked. You can slice them real thinly. You can, cut them in chunks however you want to. This is your recipe, so you make it the way you want to. So whenever we get done with this, we're going to bring this up to a boil first of all, and then it's going to run for 20 minutes, just a light simmer to steam all these greens down. Make sure that you add the rest of your greens into the pot as well as they cook down a little bit, and once you get them all in there, start the timer from there for 20 minutes forward. And those are just going to simmer and cook low and slow for 20 minutes. So I'm not going to dirty up another dish right now. I'm going to go ahead and mix everything in here and get it ready for the next step. So remember, this is going to be for 8 to 10 cups, this recipe. So for regular, just 1 8 to 10 cup, you're going to have 2 teaspoons of salt. So for every one of these that you're going to do is going to be 2 teaspoons of salt. We have 6, so that's going to be 12. Alright, we have 6, so now we're going to put in 12 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12. Alright. It calls for 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. We don't care for apple cider vinegar, so I'm going to do, 3 times 6, 18 tablespoons of white vinegar. Alright. 1, 2, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So that's about a half a cup. So 3 teaspoons of garlic, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now if you see, I'm doing heaping scoops, so it's 1 on the bottom, 1 on top. So that's why I'm counting by 2s. Brown sugar. Brown sugar will be 2 teaspoons per recipe. Times 6 will be 12. It doesn't say to pack, but I'm going to go ahead and pack. 9, 10, 11, 12. That's probably about a third a cup. Alright. And if you want to, you can add a teaspoon of hot sauce if you like it hot per recipe. And let's get this mixed up. So here, let's check on our greens. It's starting to warm up. Need to toss them a little bit. And you can use tongs or a spoon or whatever you want to do. These will start cooking on the bottom first. So we've got to get them all down in the water and wilted.
Not much in here, not much water in here because we're wanting to steam them just a hair. This is kind of like blanching, but we're just wilting them down or cooking them down for about 20 minutes. And as you can see, they're starting to go down. I'm going to add a little more. It definitely smells like greens in here. So we're right about 3 hours, and we're just now cooking. So you see what I mean by it being sometimes not worth the trouble if you have something else you want to do with these greens. But if you know, you can, like I said earlier, you can freeze these and they'll keep their texture, whereas these won't be like crispy greens. They're going to be cooked seasoned greens. See, as they get hot, they go on down as they start getting in that water. So that's why I'm trying to flip them over a little bit. Get some of these on top down in there. Grab the ones on the bottom and bring them to the top. They are so pretty though. Very bright green. Alright, I'm going to finish getting the rest of these in here, and then I'll bring you back after the 20 minutes. We are going to place a lid on here. I'm going to put this water bath canner lid on top here and let it simmer for 20 minutes, and I'll bring you back. When you're in the kitchen canning or cooking, make sure you have yourself a snack while you're cleaning up. And we're back after about 20 minutes. You can see everything's cooked down real nicely. So now what we need to do is drain these. And I'm going to go over here to the sink and drain them, and then I'm going to bring them back in my water bath canner because we need to put our seasoning mixture in here and let it cook for 20 more minutes. Now, if you don't want to do the seasonings or the spices in your greens, all you need to do is blanch them, which is after you get them all cut up, you dip them in hot boiling water for about 30 seconds, bring it out, put them straight into ice cold water to stop the cooking process. Pack your jars, put half a teaspoon of salt for pints and 1 teaspoon of salt for quarts. Fill it up with water, which you can use the water that you blanched your greens in to fill up your jars, leaving 1 inch of headspace, which is at the bottom of the rim where you screw your top on, that big fat bottom lip. That'll be 1 inch headspace. Fill it up to there, and then put your lids and rings on, and then you'll do the same processing as we're fixing to do with these. So let's go back and get our spices done with these, and then we'll finish it all up together. And we're back. Now that we've got our greens in here, we're going to go ahead and pour our spices in, which is what we mixed up earlier. Give it another stir. Pour it on top. Alright. And then we're going to need to add about 4 quarts of broth. And this is where, if you're not adding any meat, this is where your fat's going to come in. You start with 4 and see. So the recipe will be about 3 cups or so per recipe. And since this is 6, that would be about 4. So that's 2, and I'm going to use some pints here. I need some of my pint jars. Two and a half. See, there's fat on top. I'll go ahead and get that off too. Makes it good. Some of this is beef, some of this is turkey, and some of it's chicken. So it is literally whatever I had over there. That's 3. This has got a lot of fat on top. I'd rather use this here than in a recipe. So that's what the fat looks like on top. Looks kind of like lard. So since I'm not putting any meat in here, I really want to use that fat. And there is little pieces of meat in here. Alright, so that is 1, 2, 3 and a half. And we'll put one more. Make it 4 quarts and stir it up and see what it looks like. Let's get our tongs. Let me get it stirred up and I'll bring you guys over. So here you go. See all the garlic in there and those little pieces of meat like that right there. You don't want to put too much liquid in here. Yes, you are going to cook it in liquid, but this is also the liquid that you're going to use in the jars, and you don't want to cook too much liquid in here because then you just have a lot of waste left over at the end. So just be aware of how much liquid you're putting in there. You just want it to cover it. Alright, and then we're going to cover this and cook it for 20 more minutes. And then like I said, if you're not adding the spices, then you'll skip this extra step of cooking it for 20 minutes. This is where you'll be putting it in the jars and pouring the water that you blanched your greens into the jars and jarring them up. We're going to do that step next. So be right back. I have finished up. This will be the last jar that we are getting all canned up. I think I'm going to end up having 9, which is what my canner holds. This last little bit I'm having to get out with a little strainer spoon. Alright, we're going to ladle some juice in here and get it up to the 1-inch headspace, which isn't going to take much. And wipe our rims off. Very pretty. And this does have the chicken broth grease in it, so we want to make sure that we're wiping these lids off, because the greasiness can cause the lids not to seal. let's get the rings on. We'll go ahead and put these in the canner. It's got 2 inches of water in it. And these are warm. The warm green mixture. Warming the jars up. And don't forget your rack in the bottom of your canner. And these are the Sure-Tight lids. So you don't have to pre-warm them anymore, or they may not seal. They redid them this year to where you don't have to pre-warm them and sterilize them. You can still sterilize them if you want, but you don't have to put them in the boiling water beforehand. I can only get 8 of these wide mouths in there and not 9. Well, I guess we got one to eat. We've got 8, and then I've got one over here we're going to have to eat. I'm just going to put the top on here. Find the little arrows. Alright, this is going to go on 10 pounds. I'm going to take one of these rings off. Oh, so this is 5. Second ring is 10. This would be 15 if we ever needed it. I've only done one recipe in my life that had 15. That's mostly for the higher altitudes. So sea level we're going to do, or sea level to I think 3,000. 10 pounds. And as soon as this starts jiggling, we're going to start the timer for 75 minutes. If you're doing quarts, you need to do 90. So I'll see you back later. Good morning. So our canner ran for 75 minutes last night, and then I let it rest overnight to cool off and to do a natural pressure release. So let's open this together and see what's inside. Pretty, pretty. Those look fabulous. And they all sealed. So now these are pantry ready. Just gotta write what they are on top. Of course, nothing else in the pantry looks like that. Make sure to wipe your jars off, because since we put the chicken broth fat in there, it kind of made the jars a little greasy. Make sure you wipe them off. I'll show you what the water looks like for some of you new canners. It is a little dirty, and you do see some of the chicken fat where it leaked out when it was pressurizing. And that's fine. It happens. That's why we leave the head space, so that way it can kind of grow, and that's how it seals, is that it boils and it grows and goes up in the head space, and then once it cools off, it goes down, and whenever it goes down, the air that was in the head space previously was pushed out, and then as it goes down, it pulls the vacuum seal down, and that's what makes your jars seal. All right, that is it. Let me clean up. Alright guys, well thanks for stopping by this morning to come back and check out what our greens look like. And maybe this will give you an idea of what to do with your greens if you'd like to store them longer than just freezing them. Because you never know when your freezer's going to go out, when your power's going to go out, especially in the winter season whenever it can storm and ice and all that good stuff. Because here in Tennessee we ran into that several times. But this will give you another way to store your greens, to be able just to pop a top, warm them up if you can. If not, you can still eat them cold because they're cooked. So go out and preserve you up some greens. So bye. We'll see you later.